It's the festive season, and that means I am ready to share some delicious desserts. Today, I'm making my individual cranberry orange steamed puddings, and these are just beautiful looking. They look decadent, but they are actually somewhat virtuous. You make the entire recipe in one main bowl, and I'll start with all of my wet ingredients. First, a little bit of vegetable oil. And that can be a vegetable oil of your choosing, whatever you do prefer. You just want to make sure it's a neutral oil so that it doesn't have a lot of flavor. An olive oil would actually overwhelm the delicate taste of this recipe. I've got my granulated sugar, and I'm going to add 2 whole eggs and 1 egg white. So by using just an egg white, it does reduce the fat in the recipe just a little bit. I'm gonna have to separate this between my hands. Or no, I'll just grab one of my other eggshells that I had here. And I'll fish out that little piece of eggshell that went astray. Hey, it happens to everyone, right? A little bit of that eggshell in there. And in addition to that, I'll add a touch of vanilla. And to replace the moisture that I pulled away by that egg yolk, I'm just going to add 2 tablespoons of milk. And that could be a non-dairy milk if you prefer. Let me get my zester. And the orange flavor comes from orange zest. So I don't actually add any orange juice to the recipe. I rely on the flavor, the oils in the zest of the orange. And to me, there's something about orange flavored desserts and in the holiday season that just go together beautifully, especially when paired with other flavors. In this case, it's the cranberry. And this is a small orange, so I'm using the full orange for its zest. Really, you're looking for about 2 teaspoons total. I'll give this a little whisk. You want to give this a stir just to combine everything together so it's nice and smooth. This allows that orange flavor to start working through the base of this batter. Now all I have to do is sift the dry ingredients right into the bowl. I've got my all-purpose flour. If you wanted to make a gluten-free option, substituting with your favorite gluten-free baking blend would work beautifully in a recipe like this. Steamed desserts adapt well to gluten-free baking. Now, talking about adapting recipes, if you need to remove baking powder from a recipe, or if you've simply run out of baking powder, for every 1 teaspoon of baking powder that you want to replace, you use half a teaspoon of cream of tartar and a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. I know it doesn't sound like a lot of baking soda, but the acidity in the cream of tartar is what activates it, and it fully replaces baking powder. I love learning new things. So in both go. And now we sift. Give this a good whisk. It's a nice smooth batter, so easy to combine. And once it's nice and smooth, you switch to a spatula to fold in your dried cranberries. I prefer using dried cranberries in this recipe as opposed to fresh, because fresh cranberries have a habit of floating to the top of your cake batter. Dried cranberries won't do that. And because this batter is so moist, and we're also steaming the cakes, those cranberries really plump up and they almost take on a fresh cranberry texture to them within the pudding once the puddings are cooked. All right, so now to fill my dishes, you want to take a roasting or baking pan that can hold 6 individual ramekins. They can be any shape or size. These have a nice fluted edge. And what I've done is grease the inside. Then I tipped in about half a cup of sugar, rolled it around in the dish, and then transferred it to the next. So, and on and on and on, you use up all the sugar. And now I've got a nice light sugar coating on the outside of the ramekins. And you want to divide the batter evenly between your dishes. Now to steam these puddings, you need boiling water. And this is why you have the roasting pan. I've got hot water just off the boil and carefully pour it in. And you don't need to fill the pan to come right up to the top of the desserts, but just halfway, because we're going to cover the pan and it's the steam that actually cooks the puddings and keeps them nice and moist. There we go. If your pan happens to have a lid, that's perfect. Mine doesn't, so I'm using aluminum foil. These go into a 350 oven and they take about 30 minutes to bake. Try and resist peaking until about the 20-minute mark to see how they're coming along. The good news is, if you're making these desserts for a dinner party, you can bake these ahead of time and then reheat them in the same water bath or even the microwave to bring back that moisture, because you want to serve these puddings nice and warm. And here are the steamed puddings out of the oven. So what I do when they come out of the oven is you can let them cool for about 5 minutes, and then either using a dry tea towel, or if you happen to make preserves and have those tongs for lifting jars out of the water, those work brilliantly to get hot dishes out of a water bath. And then I let them cool for about 20 minutes before I want to serve them, because they're just so steamy hot you won't enjoy them fresh from the oven. So you can let them sit, and like I said, you can always microwave them individually. It depends on your microwave. It can be 10 to 15 seconds just to take the chill off. You can make these a day ahead. Or if you're going to rewarm them in the oven, put them back in the water bath, but at a lower temperature oven, 300 Fahrenheit, 150 Celsius. So when it's time to turn them out, and I'll just check, these are still warm, but cool enough that I can touch them. Because I did the oil and that little sugar layer on the outside, these should loosen up easily. Yes. And then tip it out onto your plate. Isn't that just the loveliest? So simple. You can see the cranberries in there. And what I like to do to keep it on the healthier side is a little sweetened vanilla yogurt. Adds a nice creaminess in place of a formal sauce on the plate. And you've got a delicious dessert. Now you've seen how easy it is to make, I know you can whip this up in a snap. And don't feel you have to limit a recipe like this just to the holiday season. It's virtuous and delicious all year round. I thank you for joining me, and I'll see you again for another festive fun recipe.